Hey, it's Greg Grunberg, Snap Wexley, and you are listening to 6th Scale Scavengers.
All right, Scavengers, welcome to episode 70 of the 6th Scale Scavengers. I'm your host, Bryan Fontaine, joined as always with my good friends, Chris Letty and TC. And Scavengers, we've got a great show on tap. We have another show, another guest. We want to welcome Danny, who is a fellow Scavenger and co-host for the House of Fandom on the Lights Up Productions YouTube channel. So Danny, you've been a Scavenger for a little over a year, maybe a year and a half or so. So welcome aboard. We love having Scavengers in the community and also getting out there and doing their own thing, showing that being out there and broadcasting and seeing what it's like behind the scenes. I think that was what we were just talking about before we hit record here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks guys for having me. Obviously it's really cool to be a Scavenger and be on the 6th Scale Scavengers podcast. I just kind of figured with everything that you guys have kind of taught me in the last year, I said, well, if Bryan, TC, and Chris can do it, then I can definitely do it. No, I'm just kidding.
That's exactly the spirit.
Hey, we do totally low, very low.
Especially Chris, because he's the worst.
Mm-hmm. Pretty much.
So, Danny, before we get started, why don't you tell all these Scavengers out there a little bit about, the new show that you've been joining recently. You just said that you've done about 4 episodes so far. And if anybody wanted to go check out what you're doing over there, they can.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my love of, the hobby really stems from my love of movies first. So a couple of my friends and I, we just decided there's nothing good on TV. So let's just talk about movies. Let's go back and start reviewing some old stuff. And it just started off as kind of a gag. We wanted to ask a couple questions like who's a better character for Al Pacino, Scarface or Carlito's Way, and people responded, and we just kind of took it from there. And it's been a really fun process to get to understand. So we're really excited about what we got lined up, and we actually got a show tomorrow. We're going to be reviewing the new movie Godzilla vs. Kong. So
ooh. Nice. I see people already mentioning it in the chat. No spoilers, but
absolutely.
Yeah, looking forward to that one. I'll definitely check out that you guys' review, and after I watch it this weekend.
I gotta be honest with you guys. I gotta actually start with the MonsterVerse here. I need to. So what is it? Godzilla 2014, Danny, is what kicked that one off.
That's right. Yeah.
All
so
right.
Godzilla 2, and Skull Island, I think, was the Kong movie.
Yep. I've heard Skull Island's pretty good. I think Chris, you were mentioning that to me.
Yeah, so. I really like that one.
All right, guys. Shout out to Andrew already. Dropping in the super chat here. So appreciate that, Andrew. You guys really don't have to do that, and I'm really being true. Like the last 2 shows have been utterly ridiculous. The amount of support you guys have showed. We're gonna keep doing this anyways. So I mean, I'm not gonna say no. But on the other hand, too, like I think as a Scavenger, in the spirit of scavenging, I'd rather have you guys spend the money on your own collections. So one of the reasons we wanted to have Danny on. So actually, I don't know if you remember this, Danny. You reached out to me like last June and were like, "Hey, I'm in the group. I love the topics you guys talk about. I kind of have like my own spin on it." And we're like, at the time, we're like, "Well, I don't know if we've ever really considered that before." And then when I saw that you were doing your own thing, I'm like, all right, let's come back to that. So we've been talking, and just to show that me, TC, and Chris are really a bunch of hacks, there are other really good advice out there. So what better way to get some honest advice then from a fellow scavenger. And I mean, we were also talking about it a little bit ago. Like, I sell like crazy. I changed my mind like crazy. And obviously Chris and TC have different styles as well. There's no right or wrong way. I was going to say Wong, but that's not what I was looking to say. There's no right or wrong way to collect. And I think that ultimately is we all need to, as collectors, as scavengers, we can tell and share our experiences, but until you kind of go through that yourself, Danny, like you almost have to experience it firsthand to kind of really understand where you want to be and ultimately where you want to see your collection go.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's kind of been my experience the entire time. I mean, I've made some really bad decisions and sometimes good ones, and I've gone through the fear of missing out and every possible emotion you could possibly get through in this hobby in the quickest amount of time as possible. So, I couldn't agree with you more.
All right, guys, we're going to, just in fandom right now, you just mentioned King Kong versus Godzilla, Justice League. This is going to be a very DC and Batman centric episode without us even really trying. So Gare, you're welcome. Speaking of having scavengers on, breaking news here. Our people are talking to Gare's people, and we're going to try to get him on an episode at some point. So
debut appearance is much anticipated.
I mean, if you're going to have an award named after you got to be on the podcast at some point. So we're going to try to make that happen at some point with Gare. I think everybody would love that. And I mean, if there's ever anybody that is the epitome of a positive and just outlook and the way that he goes about collecting, it's definitely Gare. So we're gonna try to make that happen as soon as possible. So, all right, guys, news. There is a ton, and we mentioned it with Justice League. Zack Snyder's Justice League. Just to be clear, the Snyder cut. The preface, the 4-hour marathon. Go around. I know some of your answers here, but 4 hours. Who watched it and how'd you go about it? Because I did watch it, but it took me a couple nights. I went through some of the different chapters. Chris,
watched
it. How did you go about it?
Watched it. Broke it up into 2 nights. Actually, it was a miracle because I got my wife on board to watch it, and she actually didn't fall asleep either night, and she fell asleep probably within the first 15 minutes of watching the original one back when it came out. So and she thought it was okay, but I really liked it. Thought it was way better than the original, and definitely the way things the extra stuff that he added to it, I really liked the story building, the character building, and all that.
TC, I know your answer.
No, I have not watched it, but no, I mean it gets great reviews, so it's I'm going to watch it very soon. I just the 4 hour mark is kind of daunting. It's hovering around Lord of the Rings like length, so I'm trying to I got to gear up for that kind of stuff and kind of plan ahead. But it sounds like a good movie.
And Danny, out of the 4 of us, you're the one that actually broadcasts and podcasts about movies. So I know that you're also a DC collector as well. So what was your take on the movie?
Well, it was kind of like what everybody said. It was very long. And for what we did for it, we split it up into 2. So I think we did one Friday that launched and recovered. We did part 2 the next following Friday. And we had to watch it twice. So I've got 8 hours of that movie in my brain. And even for a Batman fan like myself, that was a lot to do. But I mean, overall, it was a love letter to the fans. So I just appreciate that we got it.
Yeah, for sure. As somebody that's I obviously, like many, probably didn't care for the Joss Whedon cut or the theatrical version. And it did feel kind of pieced together at points, but I really appreciate that they fleshed out a lot of the characters. more so than they ever would. And we probably would have got a condensed version of this originally had he not had the the family tragedy that he did there and had to step away. But anyways, loading this up just because we're going to be talking a lot about DC and Batman and Superman in this episode. Knightmare Batman and Superman. What an odd pairing this is. Chris, 2-packs don't happen all that often.
No.
And 2-pack figures that they may have almost been, I guess, semi-spoiler, towards the end of the movie where we get the nightmare scene here. It's implied that you would see Superman in this scene, but it's kind of crazy. I mean, basically 2 reissues, Chris.
Yep.
A straight reissue of the Knightmare Batman was a Toy Fair exclusive. And then obviously the black suit version of Superman. And I've seen a lot of people modding the Justice League one to get this. And now Hot Toys is giving this. So quickly before I kick it over to you first, Chris. So the stats, TMS 038 for the Television Masterpiece series. Sideshow's retail price for the 2-pack is $515. Obviously announced on the date of this dropping on HBO Max was March 18th. And Hot Toys is estimating Q3 to Q4 next year. Sideshow's got it, Chris, July to September 2022.
Yeah, about the normal wait for most figures and stuff. So yeah, this was definitely. I mean, people have been talking about the black suit Spider-Man ever since the Snyder Cut was announced, and so people had been really. The customizers had been going to town trying to get their versions of the black suit Superman, in order. But I think, everybody got what they wanted as far as, a reissue of a pretty desirable Batman and the black suit Spider-Man. Oh, gosh,
you keep saying Spider-Man. It's. I had to correct you on the second
because we don't talk about. I know we don't talk about DC.
This is so out of your wheelhouse, boys.
It is.
That's why we got you here, Danny.
Spidey's king.
I know he is. Batman and Superman right behind. But I love this Batman version of Batman. It was one of the ones when I started getting. Some of the Harley figures and stuff. I was thinking about pairing a Batman with the Suicide Squad one, the BVS one, whatever. And this one always stuck out as being like the coolest, most unique one. But the prices were just too high, for what it was. But I think, this looks great as this will look great on your DC shelf if you don't have either one of these figures. I know that there's like a kit with a different cloak for Batman out there that some people say might be an upgrade, but yeah, this is one. I mean, I would seriously consider this one down the road. Wait, I'm really curious to see how this one, this 2-pack really, if it's going to be available all the way until release. So yeah, one I'll target down the line.
All right, Danny, talk some sense into us. I will also say there has been a surprising amount of scavengers, Danny, that I see are picking this up and is like reignited their search for like DC figures. So as somebody that collects DC, as a DC fan, I mean, that has to just warm your heart, just like it would. I know I just saw Gare popping in. Long live DC here.
Yeah, I saw Gare. Yeah, I mean, honestly, you took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say this warms my heart to see these kind of photos. I haven't seen any prominent DC figures for better part of the last 3 years. So it's a reissue. I personally have the figure already, and I can tell you everybody firsthand, he's definitely worth it. He has so much presence on the shelf. You can probably see him in the back corner of my screen here. But yeah, for me, it's just the only thing that disappoints me is the fact it's a 2-pack, and they're not selling it separately. That's kind of only bummer because I really want that black suit Spider-Man. I meant Superman. I'm just kidding, Chris.
Yeah. I know the chat's giving me all kinds of crap.
So TC, we also saw something that I guess I wasn't terribly surprised after we started to see, the 2-pack available here, and where a lot of collectors, just like, Danny already has, the Knightmare Batman and really wants, the Superman. I mean, do we see like a buddy system developing here, TC, where, somebody will, split it or buy it and sell one of the other?
Yeah, because I think, because they don't really belong together. I have not seen the movie, but I've gotten reports that, they do not show up together. Yeah, I mean, I remember when this Knightmare Batman came out years ago. It sold out, I thought, pretty quickly, and it just stayed high. So it's not surprising that they're coming back out with it. It's also not surprising that they put it in a 2-pack. It is, that one was I believe, a Toy Fair exclusive, so it does retain that exclusivity by being a solo figure. It is a cool figure. I mean, this is probably the coolest Batman, in my opinion, that they've ever made. And it's always been popular. So whoever's ordering it, I would probably, if you're going to order it, probably order it a little earlier than some other ones. I don't think Hot Toys historically produces DC figures at the rate of like some of the Marvel stuff. So there is a chance that like at release, like it might go to waitlist. I don't know. It's obviously $500+
Yeah.
However, Black Suit Superman and Knightmare Batman are probably two of the more unique DC offerings they've ever done. So it's kind of it's an interesting dynamic going on right here. So I would be a little bit cautious on waiting too long, but obviously historically that has not been a problem.
Yeah, I would really like to hear the market's strategy for this 2-pack from Hot Toys. Some of those points that you made, TC, being a highly desirable figure previously released, and then a highly desirable version of a character that they had yet to release. I mean, it definitely makes sense as a 2-pack, but then again, there's some collectors out there will potentially split up the set, but then you think about long-term value, and is that really the way to go? And questions that definitely have to ask yourself if you are going to split it up. Yeah.
All right, guys, before we kick things temporarily back over to Marvel to come back to DC here, a couple of shout outs. K-Stev, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Watched, look at that. That's a marathon. Man of Steel,
Whoa.
BVS Ultimate Edition, and then the Snyder Justice League. And then, like, guys, seriously, spend your money on your collections here. Raul,
Wow.
dropping a big amount here. That's thank you so much. And we thanks for what we do. It's the least we can do. We're gonna do this anyway. So the support that this community has for collecting just always baffles me. And then also thanks Atlas also dropping a donation here. We definitely appreciate that as well. Nightmare Joker.
I know that would have been
a spoiler, but I mean, that would be kind of crazy. They've got enough Leto head sculpts kicking around, so those figures
would have made a little bit more sense. To be honest with you, that would have made a lot more sense than this. I still want my black Superman. Sorry, I'm a bitter collector over here.
So Danny needs a buddy here for the 2-pack.
It's crazy though, like the fact that Leto's Joker made an appearance. I mean, you could barely give away his figures not that long ago, and now everybody was asking in search of Leto Joker figures. I mean, that's how quickly this area of collecting can turn.
And the other thing too about kind of a smaller supply out there and not being able to meet the demand, that's kind of our last Justice League portion. There's other Batman stuff that we need to talk about as well, but all the Justice League figures, guys, 2X or more, all of them. It's crazy. Aquaman, Flash is over 400, almost 500. Some of these figures you could have got for retail like weeks before the Snyder cut dropped on HBO Max. The Batman figures are all approaching 500. The standard and deluxe, the tactical suit. Superman's over 500. The Wonder Woman's probably in the mid fours. Everybody wants to know where Cyborg is. Maybe it's coming. Maybe, perhaps. What did Pete say all the time? Is it possible that we get Cyborg? Well, it always is. He did show up on a poster at the new Echo Base shop, so there's a lot of rampant speculation that we could actually see why is Cyborg here, and I think that would make a lot of Justice League collectors very happy to finally finish off the full lineup here. All right, back to Marvel. Winter Soldier, Bucky Barnes. This was very surprising. Hidalgo was calling for it the night of when this dropped and said, hey, when are we going to get the new Falcon and Winter Soldier figures? And everybody said, myself included, wait till the after like episode 5, episode 6, and then we'll see them. But I guess, guys, maybe Bucky's look isn't going to change all that much from where it is now to the end of the series here, the miniseries. This, it looks like a good release, TC. TMS 039, Sideshow's retail price or suggested price $250, announced March 23rd. And again, July to September 2022, quarter 3, quarter 4. I like the head sculpt, TC. Again, I worry with a lot of the Winter Soldier Bucky figures we've gotten that include like the leather pleather parts, flaking could be a concern. It just seems like it's a very kind of bare bones release here, TC.
Yeah, I think that I would, if I were to choose, I would keep the Infinity War one. If I had to pick one, it's a you've got Knightmare Batman, which is like a superstar figure, and then now we're talking about this figure. It's just like you said, it's very vanilla. It is what it is. It's you might need them for your display with the Falcon. I think most people are waiting for the Falcon. It's cool. The arm's probably not die cast. It's probably, the same plastic they use for Infinity War. I just, like you said, I get concerned. I would get concerned with the material of the vest. At the price that they're going to charge, I'd probably opt for, like I said, the Infinity War one, where the material is going to last a little bit longer. I like the character a little bit better in Infinity War. So, good release. Probably a B plus. Hot Toys quality. Not bad.
So Chris, TC mentioned it with, the arm is probably plastic. It didn't really pose all that well. I had the Infinity War figure for a period of time. Obviously the head sculpt with the shorter haircut here looking very suave. It looks good. It's just, I don't know. Yeah. It's not really speaking to me.
Yeah. That's even the reaction that the Infinity War one had. I sold that one about a month ago in anticipation of a new one. And, I don't really regret it, but, this one, I think it's a solid looking figure. I think the head sculpt looks great. I like the short hair, better, there, but again, like now, I'm like, do I really need a Bucky in my lineup? I don't know. Again, the execution, the tailoring, the fit, the finish. It's all there for this figure. It's just it's really lacking in accessories. It's too bad that they didn't have like a to be announced accessory, whatever it might be, something else to add to the mix, because at $250, you're just not getting a ton for this figure. So, yeah, I don't know.
Danny, your thoughts on this? And I'm also seeing some chatter about, and I guess semi-spoiler, we've already seen a flashback of, the Cab Winter Soldier look back to Hail Hydra days here. So I'd almost think that people would almost prefer that one here, Danny.
Yeah, I agree, Bryan. And honestly, if I had a chance of a reissue for the Winter Soldier version of Bucky, I would be all over that. Honestly, compared to this one, it's gorgeous. Don't get me wrong, the head sculpt is fantastic. Yeah. It's a reissue from the same arm from the Infinity War that we saw, which it seems like we all had it at one point and kind of sold it at some point. But yeah, I mean, to echo what TC was saying, I mean, the parts about the leather on the jacket, that does concern me. It's kind of has a known history with Bucky figures that tend to happen, so that kind of scares me away a little bit. But if this is a different quality material that they're using this time, I mean, and you don't have a Bucky yet, this is definitely a nice one to start with.
Yeah, especially if you can get it at one of the other retailers, a little bit, lower than Sideshow's pricing, and who knows? I mean, it's possible that this one doesn't get like crazy pre-ordered. We'll see how the series is received, and people we always say go forward, not go back. I don't think the Bucky prices are not super crazy with the Infinity War, a little bit above retail, but still, if you want to go for this figure, you can plan it out. He's not going to be out till next year. And the reissue, or an updated version of the Winter Soldier, in his prime, I think that's a really appealing figure. I never had one of the earlier ones, so I would definitely welcome something like that.
Yeah, I think that Winter Soldier one is the one. I had the Civil War one for a little bit, and even comparing that to the one from Infinity War, it's just lacking there a little bit. The next thing we need to talk about here, guys, I didn't have the opportunity to grab any photos because the Hot Toy bloggers did not give us any, which isn't terribly surprising. But Chris, we did get the Mysterio's drones, the accessory 011 drop. Originally going to retail for $105. So essentially this is getting us another drone, so you could set it up in your Spidey display with two of the miniature ones on the stand. Only 219 days from pre-order to release. Not terribly surprising, because obviously it took forever for those Far From Home figures to actually drop, and we're still waiting for Mysterio himself. We've got his drones now, which actually are Tony's, but besides the point. So pretty much right on schedule. I mean, Sideshow originally had said January to March, and here it is at the end of March that we're getting these.
Yeah, again, it's people were selling those drones separately with the homemade suit re-release for Far From Home, and Hot Toys said we'll just release them ourselves. And again, for photographers, for people planning a display with Mysterio and other Spidey versions of Spidey, I think it's always fun having these extra things, especially Sideshow branded. I know a lot of third-party companies come out with this stuff, but I mean, this is an area where I think Sideshow is lacking. I think that they could capitalize doing a lot more of these accessory packs, additional items to add to displays. I mean, they do all the other cause babies and all this other stuff. I mean, just make more accessories, and I think that's an area that they could definitely capitalize on.
Yeah, TC, I know obviously Scott on our admin team has got a huge Scott with Parker Files has got a huge Spidey diorama ready to go, and obviously I think he's got some of these on the way. I know Robert as Scavenger out there is getting this. I know some others as well. So I mean, I'm not a diorama guy myself, but like Chris said, it is good that Hot Toys gives us these drops.
Yeah, and first of all, what's wrong with Chris? The guy's saying Spider-Man, Superman, Sideshow, Hot Toys. Like they're
I've never.
I didn't want to say it.
It might be. It might be the tequila that I had right before I got on. But
you are the worst.
No.
I mean, I was gonna mention this at the beginning. I'll say it now just because it's actually going to be even funnier. So, 70 episodes in, guys, we had the first person that commented on our last video that said one of us should be fired and we should replace somebody with. It happened to be Pete. Somebody said, "Hey, one of you guys should go. You guys should bring in Pete. So we've officially made it 70 episodes in. Somebody thought one of us should go, and we should change the show that we've had since episode 24 here. So
Yeah.
not going to happen. Sorry to burst your bubble, but sorry, I just had to throw that in because I've actually been contemplating for the last several minutes here on how I can cut my friendship off with Chris here because he's just doing horrible right now.
Anyway, yeah, I mean the drones are cool. They're Hot Toys occasionally will do this, but I think he got rid of them.
I didn't do that.
I think they do a good job with this kind of stuff, and it was a clear move to kind of counter the third party, but pretty quick turnaround. Good accessory.
Just so everybody knows, I think Chris just decided he was going to quit. I still hate you. Too funny. Anyways, so yeah, Michael's saying he got snapped by Thanos. All right. So, anyways, Mysterio drones. We'll keep moving. All right, guys. What on earth? And I don't know why this happened to be the first photo that I'm showing here with the duck face going on from Christian Bale here, but we know Hot Toys likes to do reissues. These next two things we're going to talk about here, Danny, I never thought in a million years that we would see these again. The Nolan trilogy, Batman Begins. We are going to talk about the Batman Begins figure here, which was originally a Toy Fair exclusive, I believe, in 2011. So this is like a 9-year-old figure that they're redoing.
Wow.
And the Batmobile, the Tumbler. Like, you have so many options here, Danny, if you're just jumping in, and so many people are like DC crazy right now because of the Snyder Cut. You could start a Batman collection from scratch and not have to go backward. Like, I can't even process this right now.
Bryan, it is a good time to be alive as a DC fan right now because you are getting Christmas early. I mean, as far as for me, this figure holds a lot of personal meaning for me. When I first heard about Hot Toys all those years ago, this was a brand new figure. So this was like, because the Dark Knight trilogy was kind of in full swing at that point, and one of my buddies, who's actually one of the co-hosts on the show that I'm on, he introduced me to Hot Toys, and this was the first figure he showed me. And I went out of my way when I started getting into the hobby to track down this figure, and it was not cheap. And when I got it, it was already very old. And I'm just hoping, because I sold that one because it had a lot of issues, problems with the ankles. You can see that they replaced the boots now to look more like the Dark Knight DX12 and now the DX19 that's coming out now. And I wanted to sell in mine just because it really showed its age, and I wanted to go in the quarter scale one down the road. I was really hoping if this thing ever came, they would just shrink down that quarter scale one and give us the 1/6 reissue that way. This one looks a lot more like the one I had. A couple modifications to the body and the boots. I'm not getting excited or I'm not getting scared about this figure yet because it looks like it's really early. And one of the photos, like I think the one you first showed, Bryan, the rubber suit is kind of peeking out underneath the utility belts in that picture. So it's, let me see if you can you can see it. Yeah, it's in that area there, right where the emblem is in the center of the belt on the left-hand side of the picture. It's kind of pinching it underneath the belt there. So this is a very early prototype of what's going to be coming out. And I'm hoping that they're going to make some modifications closer to release there. Just because the one thing I had a big issue was the cowl itself. It had a very long neck to it there, and it kind of stuck out kind of like a giraffe on the figure's body. So yeah, in those poses, it looks great, but up close, it's very long and noticeable compared to some of the other figures. So I'm not panicking, but I love the idea that they're doing this. I'm going to keep an eye on this one here because if they do some modifications to it down the road, I'm definitely going to pick this one up for me for sure.
Yeah, Chris, it's kind of crazy. I never thought we'd ever talk about these figures on our episode. any episode here ever, let alone like almost 3 years in here. I mean, this is MMS $5.95. The sideshow retail price of this is going to be $255. The original figure of this, Chris, was MMS $155. So way back, and like we said, it was that Toy Fair exclusive, and we're looking at July to September next year. This and obviously we're going to obviously be talking about the tumbler here, the Batmobile. Breaking my brain that's going to be available too, because like that was going for an insane amount of money just recently on eBay, and we're going to get the chance as collectors to get it brand new. It'll be we'll talk about the Batmobile when we get to that, but I mean, Chris, the Nolan trilogy here, I mean,
oh yeah, I mean, definitely it is crazy how Hot Toys is going back to the well and perfecting these figures that they came out with a decade ago, and I think that's a great thing to see from Hot Toys, because it's unfortunate that a lot of these early figures had a lot of really bad condition issues and they just did not stand the test of time. So I mean I think it looks great, aesthetically. Definitely a different style Batman suit. It's got uniqueness to the Nolan trilogy and stuff, with nods to the comics and animation and that sort of thing. But again, I mean, it's a cool looking figure, and it's, even though the Nolan trilogy isn't like the end all be all for me, I know it is for a lot of fans and collectors out there. But yeah,
I mean, TC, we've obviously been talking about a lot more reissues within the last couple months, last couple episodes, than I ever thought we would as well. And obviously, aside from kind of the impact that this has, the prestige that collectors had that had this figure, like Danny did before, or we keep leaking into talking about the Batmobile. We will talk about that too, but the other thing that I guess this one doesn't bother me as much, TC, as some of the others is, because there is so many more Hot Toy collectors now than there was 9 years ago, or even 10 years ago, or more. And like the fact that people get a chance to really own some of these iconic pieces from, like Chris said, a trilogy that people hold in very high regard. I mean, not everybody loves it, don't get me wrong, but this is one I don't really have a problem with.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. The thing about it is Hot Toys they have a brand, obviously. So you have Batman Begins figures that came out, what did you guys say, 2011? Was it 2012? Very early in the process. You can't really have them lag behind every other single franchise, because that's what ends up happening. This Batman Begins suit, the original Dark Knight suit, everything, it's so old, it's just not up to the 2021 standards. I don't really have a problem with it either. I'm not a huge fan of the reissues, but it's a classic. It's a classic trilogy. This is, while I prefer the Dark Knight suit, I know a lot of Batman collectors definitely prefer this Batman Begins suit. This is their favorite in the whole trilogy. So I think with this line right now, if I was Hot Toys, I don't see why they wouldn't continue it. They give me pretty much everything: vehicles, Batman,
Duckface,
the Harvey Dent, and now just give everybody the Catwoman, Selena Kyle, and then Bane, and then obviously Dark Knight Joker. Finish it up, give everyone everything, and then you've got like this amazing collection, modernized into 2021. And I think everybody, or the large majority of their collecting base, would be very happy. I would guess too that like a lot of the collectors that had the original one, like off original purchase, might not be collecting today. I mean, it's so old. It's almost a decade.
Yeah,
has gone by.
Like somebody like Lotus Stark obviously was one of the OG collectors, and I had to tag him in a post earlier this week to say, "Hey, Lotus, does this bring back any memories?" Because he's the one that had like all these phenomenal setups of like the Nolan trilogy and stuff like that. So I mean, I'm going to bring this up on the screen here too, Danny, but like, this is like one of my favorite versions of the Batmobile. Obviously, probably one of the top ones is going back to the animated series one. Like that to me is like, that's the Batmobile. It's so sleek and so simplistic, but it's just there. But I mean, this thing is just awesome. Like this would be I might be wrong about this, Danny, but I think this is the 4th time that we'll have gotten this vehicle, the Batmobile. There was the original one, which was MMS 69. And then they did a reissue of that when The Dark Knight came out. And then we got it again in camo version for The Dark Knight Returns, obviously with, Bane had taken that over. And now this is like the 4th time. I mean, obviously the price jumped from the original releases, but I mean, $625, Danny, for something that was going for over $1,000 on the low end on eBay just a few weeks ago. I mean, kind of crazy here. I mean, I would love to get this. I just don't know if I have the space. Like I've been doing so many mental gymnastics in my head to say, okay, this time next year, if I do decide that I still would like to get this, I've gotten so far to look at the measurements here, Danny, to say, okay, wheel to wheel in the back, it's about 18.5 inches. We're using the US measurement system here. And the module cases I have for 6 scale, it's 17.5 inches. I'm like, it won't even fit in that. I'm like, do I get do I get bigger module cases? Do I spend more money to get, I'm just like, but anyways, like as a DC fan, I mean, did you think we'd get this again? I thought we all thought Hot Toys were done with big vehicles.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, no, I did not see this one coming. I mean, I always let that hope for the Batman Begins suit, and the Dark Knight and the Dark Knight Rises suit has been released multiple times, but I did not expect this year to be announced, and I don't know if I'll buy any of the Batman figures. Honestly, this is the one that keeps me up at night. I don't know if I can pass up on this one, but it's just like my only thought process to this is just like, how do I get it into the house without my wife finding out? That is the only thing I've been thinking about for the last couple of days. Like, this is a tough one for me, guys. I'm not going to lie to you. This one, I can normally say, no, I'll be good. I'll pass on this one. But this is, this is my favorite Batmobile too. It's just so cool. I mean, there were so many cool scenes with it in the movie, and I'm just like, I hope she's not watching this right now. I'm just recording because I kind of feel like I want to plead the fifth on this answer, but I'll blink twice or something. But I'm definitely I'm definitely gonna give this one a lot of thought because it is a big commitment to space size alone. I don't think I own anything that can house that thing.
Yeah, it's like, Chris, it's like 18.5 inches wide at the back wheels. It's about 29 inches long. The height isn't really a problem. I think it's only about 9 or 10 inches tall. So it's actually shorter than, the figures that we have that are standing up in 6 scale, but it's a lot of width, and it's a lot of
just
shelf presence here.
Put the wheels on the wall and mount it horizontally or vertically. And then you got the profile is much smaller.
Yeah.
There you go, Chris.
I like it.
I know. There you go. Yeah, absolutely. Now, this is the type of piece that you get, those glass coffee tables, and put a scene in your coffee table, or something like that. Or if you're lucky enough to have, a pretty big display space, you can set up a whole scene. I know a lot of people have made like the armory, and with Alfred and Bruce and everything at the console and all this stuff. I mean, there's just so many options. I know, Bill, the dork layer.
Just carry through the wall.
I like it. No, I like it. It's good. Thanks for that.
It's like the Kool-Aid man.
Yeah. This, I mean, definitely. This is just, I know we say it sound like a broken record, but like, this is what Hot Toys is all about. These types of pieces. This is a centerpiece for your collection. If you're a Batman collector or DC collector, I mean, this is the type of thing that you have your collection centered around, and it's what's going to get the most attention when people come and check out your room, just because it's so detailed at that scale that, I mean, it's a piece of art, really. And it goes to show, the style and everything really holds up, and it doesn't, obviously it doesn't look dated or anything like that, but just such an awesome piece.
I don't know, TC, you might be onto something with this this wall mounting. A lot of people are saying too, it's not necessarily the height that's the issue here. It's the footprint. I mean, that's the problem.
Well, you can just mount it on your wall, and then you have Batman hanging on one of the sides. You get the full view of the figure. If you have it horizontally and you have it elevated, you can't see the Batman figure.
That's a good point.
Yeah, you could do a whole scene like it's driving off of a cliff or something, and he's jumping out of it.
I mean, a lot of people are even saying here too, it doesn't, it doesn't fit on top of a DTOF. It won't fit in a 6-scale module case. You'd have to get like the DF size. So anyways, before we talk about one more Batman figure, because this is Batman Central here in episode 70, shout out Elvis. Called to say I love you, Short Trooper. Elvis is right over here. He's doing fine. I've got my helmet right above my head here. So thank you, Elvis, as always, for the support. Greatly appreciate it. And I think Frank.
Yeah. We
will keep up the great work here, Frank. Glad to have your support
Appreciate
here
it.
as well. Thank you. All right. One more Batman figure. So this is on the Arkham Knight video game series. A very different style. Danny, I probably, like all of us here, I just wasn't. I was too old for when Batman Beyond came out, the cartoon and stuff. I mentioned it earlier. The animated series was like my jam growing up. I saw all the episodes multiple times. But when Batman Beyond came out, it never caught my fancy. I don't know much about the character itself. So obviously it does have kind of like a little bit of a cult following, but this is obviously just a stylized suit from the video game series. It's not actually the Batman Beyond character with Terry. What's the last name?
It was Terry McGinnis. Terry McGinnis.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, this is obviously just a suit within the video game, and it's very stylized in that Arkham style where, very kind of futuristic armor-like, and I don't know. I mean, it looks like a cool figure. I'll be honest, it's just not for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I agree. It is a very nice looking figure, and honestly, it kind of fell off my radar because it's been delayed so long. But I did get a chance to see the animated show in its prime, and I was a late bloomer, but yeah, I mean, it was a cool show. This is a little bit different. Like you said, it's really more in the Arkham style. It looks good, but you just got to really be a fan of honestly the video game to really invest in this one. I don't see every Batman fan going after this one. This seems like more of this. If you're a fan of those games and you had an attachment to that particular design, go for it. I don't think this was pre-ordered very much. I don't think this was pre-ordered a lot.
Yeah, I don't think so. James is saying it would look really cool next to Deathstroke, and that just happens to be the photo I landed on here. Chris, yeah, BGM 39, retail price $281, so on the high end for a Batman figure. And it was announced last January 16th, 2020, and then released on March 30th, 439 days. It ended up being about 3 months late, so not super late by Hot Toy standards, but
not terrible.
I mean, like Chris, I know you probably didn't see this either, but
yeah, I'm not into the games. That series, that version of Batman came out, while I was probably in high school or something. So I just
old man,
yeah, right. This figure looks really cool. It's got so many elements to it, so many layers and different pieces of armor and padding, protection, weapons. It looks cool. The Arkham series seems to have, a solid following. They keep on making them. So, I mean, if you got the lineup, I mean, it just, it adds to that collection. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this figure tracks, if it if it jumps up in value and that sort of thing. But again, cool looking figure, not for me, but glad Hot Toys is doing these types of figures.
Any final thoughts on this one, TC?
No,
I didn't think so.
no. I mean, this actually amazes me.
No.
This is actually more amazing. Not more, but it's like it makes me think, how do they do this stuff?
Yeah,
look how detailed it is. It's just ridiculous
at that scale, and it's
Yep.
just the fit and finish, everything.
It's like
looks,
Iron Man level.
Yeah.
All right. We are 50 minutes in, and we're still not all the way done with news here. This was a lot. I think we got a little too excited about some of the Batman stuff. TC, it looks like Endgame Cap is shipping soon from Sideshow. We've seen some Scavengers, and I've seen some people in some other groups saying that this is coming. We got the release not that long ago, so nice to see that people will have this figure in hand stateside here.
Yeah. Incinerator Trooper also waitlisted, and that one kind of took a little bit of time.
Yeah,
but I guess I expect it to kind of over the next few months spike a little bit, especially as we get closer. I know we're kind of far out from the next Star Wars thing, but Book of Boba Fett's not too far on the horizon.
Yeah,
and Pennywise got delayed as well.
Yeah, I don't know how many people are too upset about that, but
that one scares me. So.
I cannot look at it. It's so
I used to be into horror movies in my youth, and I can't do it anymore. I get too freaked out. Just not for me. So, all right. Anyways, guys, that is a lot of news, and again, we'll switch over to our collection update again. Why people find this enjoyable, baffles. Maybe it's the psychology of like what we do and why we do it, and that's why we've got Danny here to talk about our topic here in a little bit, getting some advice. A lot of different topics we want to cover. Hopefully, we get to cover most of them, but we'll go through our collection update here quickly. So, Chris, I'll start with you, my friend.
Okay, I did receive finally. I felt like I was like one of the last collectors in the group to receive my heavy infantry Mando. Got that from Ray at Underground Figures. It's right behind me. Kind of set it up. It is, man. I weighed it. Just the figure, like in the gun alone, is like 9 pounds. Jesus, 1 pound 9 ounces. But I mean, the heft of the figure and everything, it's like really solid figure. It took me a while to get him holding the gun properly. It was kind of a pain to get him to grab onto the back handle, but yeah, really like that figure in hand. Yeah, I know, Gare. The collection update is always awesome. So I sold some figures. I had mentioned I had listed some on eBay, or I was going to last time around. I sold DX17 Darth Maul exclusive just minutes before we went live. Infinity War Iron Spider, and then Sideshow Harley Quinn and Sideshow Joker. Had to cut the collection, and some redundancies there. All great figures. I mean, this happens to me every time I start unboxing them, taking pictures. I'm like, man, this is a really cool figure. But TC always says like almost every figure is cool. So again, like I got to pare that collection down. Right now I have the only figure I have listed right now on eBay is TFA Ray and BB-8 set. My seller name is Vintage Viewport on eBay. I was hoping to get this stack of about 10 Hot Toys behind me, not the ones right behind me, but behind this.
You just almost gave Elvis a heart attack.
I know.
Short Trooper might be available.
No. Well, actually, Short Trooper got boxed up, so he's going to go into he's in the sleep pattern right now. We'll unbox him, maybe in a couple of years. But yeah, I've got about 8 figures that I'm going to list soon. But it's funny, like I was going through the figures and I realized, I want to switch up the display. Above this is Marvel stuff, boxed up a few figures, and then I ended up unboxing my Daredevil figure from the Netflix series, and that was actually one of the first figures I ever ordered from Sideshow 3 years ago, and I had never broken the seal on it. So,
you are the worst.
So I finally unboxed them and set them up. Yeah. So there you go. There's the worst collection update for this episode. Who's next?
Danny, I didn't mean to skip over you. We usually like our guests to go first if possible. I know that you recently had a birthday and scored some cool things. So belated happy birthday. And so did you pick up anything cool?
Not me personally, but the wife picked up a really interesting gift for me, which it's not like her to support my hobby habits. So, but yeah, we went to Disney. We had a great time at Hollywood Studios. We got to do the whole Galaxy's Edge experience here, which was phenomenal. Picked up a couple lightsabers. As far as Hot Toys updates there, I had the Heavy Industry Mandalorian come in, which was exciting. And right next to him, the UPS driver dropped off the Sideshow collectible life-scale Baby Yoda, which was a big shock. It was a big shock.
Oh, man.
It is absolutely stunning. I'm in love. He's a little too real looking, if that makes sense. Sometimes when I'm coming into a room and I kind of catch him in the corner of my eye, and it's just kind of scared for a second, oh, but then he's so darn cute. So you're just oh, okay. But yeah, so awesome gift. She definitely set the bar high because her birthday's coming up next month. So I got to deliver now. But yeah, that's pretty much it for me the last couple of days.
Very cool, Danny. I've yet to actually, no, I take that back. I have seen it in a comic shop not that far from where Chris and I live, and it is very awesome looking. So completely understand where you're going there. So TC, you and I are left. I'll let you go, and then I'll bring up the rear here.
I'll be quick. I sold my Cody figures. I had 2 of them. Sold those. Actually, Cody's kind of jumping up in price. I didn't really expect that, but I was able to sell those. I sold a Mando, and I sold an Incinerator Trooper, and then Shuri. So Shuri, great figure. Never really had the full crew all together at the same time. Had Black Panther for a little bit. Have Killmonger. Had the original T'Chaka figure, just never at the exact same time, so I just kind of moved on. And Shuri's also kind of been rising in price a little bit, so that was nice to kind of get retailer a little above for her, and yeah, just continuing to sell, but no pickups from me.
Yep, no, that's perfectly fine. I know we've talked about it in prior episodes. You're kind of shifting focus and stuff. You're not going anywhere. You're still part of the team. I think everybody, every time you give these updates,
please,
DC's not going anywhere. Definitely not going anywhere. So, all right, my collection updates. So Danny, I got a little bit of the DC bug. Gare knows this firsthand. I think some of the admin team knows as well, but I did decide to take the plunge a little bit. This is my 2.0 attempt into DC. My first one was I'd gotten the Wonder Woman comic concept Justice League figure and had it for a little bit and just decided it just didn't fit. So I did my research. I did my scavenging. And like I said, these prices are just astronomical right now for DC figures, especially Batman and Superman. But I did find a really good deal on the Batman versus Superman Batman figure, which, based on my research and a lot of people that are Batman collectors out there, seemed to be the best one to get. And I found a really good deal. So I did add that. And then on Facebook group, OSR BST, I saw somebody selling the Justice League Superman for far lower than I had seen anywhere else, and I decided to jump on that as well. I don't know if I'm going to go eventually. I'm trying not to do any pre-orders right now. I mean, the Knightmare Batman and the Black Suit Superman, not Spider-Man, Chris, does look a little intriguing. So I don't know. I'm right now. I'm leaning towards kind of cutting out a little. I don't want to get all the DC characters. I like, as I talked about earlier, like, who isn't a Batman fan from the original '89 movie, the animated series? It's just funny when it's not right there in front of you, and then it's just kind of came to this realization, like, I kind of always been a Batman fan. I think everybody always is a little bit of a Batman fan, and so with Hot Toys seemingly, willing to go back and do the Dark Knight Returns figure, the DX19, I'm not super keen on the Batman Forever line. I'm glad for fans that are able to get that. But then
I was going to ask. I was going to ask. Bat nipples?
Yeah, that's the one I didn't really. Even when it came out, I didn't really care for it too much. But then the Nolan trilogy, obviously, that's really good. So I don't know. We'll see. But I've got both of those in hand. Actually, they're behind me right now. I haven't had a chance to set them up, but so I did that, and I was like, okay, things are great. And then the real world hit a little bit. We are going to be doing a major house renovation. We're going to be redoing a deck on our house, and was kind of expected, but the price came in far greater than we were expecting to. And instead of having to like completely rearrange things and do all this other stuff, kind of making Garrett, come on, dude, seriously. Oh gosh,
you told him not to.
I did tell him not to. Gare,
wow,
you could have bought several Hot Toys by now at this point. I'm going to have a chat with you after the show, my friend. You're cut off. I'm gonna tell Google, YouTube, all of them, do not take this man's money anymore.
We're blocking you.
We're blocking you. Anyways, lost my complete train of thought. Oh, anyways, so instead of, we literally talk about using our collection as currency sometimes. So I ended up deciding to sell some figures just to free up my budget over the course of the next 4 or 5 months. And then really taking a hard look at what I had on pre-orders and deciding that some of the stuff coming out this summer is more desirable than some of the things I had on my shelf. So trying to free up some short-term budget space. Most of the figures I have coming are kind of like early this summer, and then I don't have anything else until like wintertime. So trying to free things up here a little bit. So I'm kind of, I feel like I'm abandoning my redo of the Mando line here, but TC sold a few figures. So I sold Death Trooper, Incinerator Trooper, a Remnant Trooper, and then I was going to have I had the 40th anniversary Boba Fett on the way. I was going to display him next to the other Empire Strikes Back version I had with his kind of his pre-pro look, to have 5 Boba Fetts on my shelf because my son just absolutely still adores Boba Fett. So I ended up selling the older version that I had of Boba Fett, and I'm keeping the 40th anniversary one, just not with the deluxe accessories there and stuff. And I'm in the process of trying to sell my Han Solo figure from the Solo movie. That was a tough one to put up there, but he literally is Solo. He just doesn't really fit with anything else that I've got. And then the hard part here was deciding the pre-orders that I wanted to have, but then there was a lot that I had to let go. 10 pre-orders over the course of a couple different retailers, including one of them being Underground Figures. And a lot of them were tied to the Mando line. A lot of stuff like Troopers and stuff. I just really wanted to have a full display, but now when I really thought about it, these are like some of the tough decisions that we talk about a lot on the show. And my motivation this time actually was more of outside of the collecting budget, just trying to take a step back, almost pause a little bit. I know, Chris, you've been talking a little bit about that too, is it's not like getting out or selling a bunch of stuff to go buy some other things. Like, honestly, I don't know if this whole thing happened and then like I got the bug about Batman and Superman, the figures that I got, I don't know if I would do those or not. it doesn't make sense to sell them right now. If anything, I just hold on to them and see if I want to display or not. But yeah, it kind of, it's a privilege to be able to collect this stuff and to be able to say, yeah, I'm just going to take a step back and take care of stuff and try to be responsible for a bit. It kind of sucks. So some of those figures, I really, the one that got me the most was the Solo figure, and I haven't actually sold them yet, but
yeah, such a good figure.
Yeah, it was one of my top figures from last year. I mean, the head sculpt on it is phenomenal. It's very underrated, and
you'd eventually leave anyway as soon as they announce Bespin Han or something.
Yeah, and that's the case, and it's like trying to find out. And I know we'll talk about this in a few minutes here, Danny, with some of the, some of the tips and things that you've learned over your course of collecting hot toys here. But you can't collect everything. I think. There's a lot of collectors and YouTubers out there that'll tell you, collect what you love. It's really easy to love everything. It's really easy to love everything.
That got me no closer to making a decision. Like, thanks. I still want to buy everything. What do I do next?
Yeah. That's my reality too. Just jumping on everything, liking every figure. Hard cuts had to happen. Having to sell DX-17 Darth Maul, never having set it up, never removing it from the box. The only time I took pictures of it was when I was selling it. It's that type of stuff. That stinks, but that's me jumping on a figure, and then also buying Solo Maul. Ended up liking Solo Maul more, and then I have to ask myself, do I really need 2 Darth Mauls? Because I kind of want the Clone Wars Darth Maul too. Do I need 3 Darth Mauls? So yeah, definitely.
No, and no.
No, we don't.
TC and I have been your guardian angel lately. We're like trying to get you to.
Oh yeah, you keep on doing revisions on my list. And, I made cuts, and it's like, all right, once those get sold, we're going to make another pass through.
Well, the thing is, we know your favorites are Endor, Jedi, Clone Wars, Guardians, Ragnarok. I mean, these are your rare air type, IPs and stuff. So, if you can kind of gear towards that, I think you make progress.
Yeah.
All right. We are an hour and 7 minutes in. We typically go about 90 minutes. I have a feeling this will probably take longer than 23 minutes to go through this topic here, Danny. But before we get started here, I know that I've seen a couple people asking in the chat if you could help them with some of the backgrounds that you have behind you. You've got all your DTOFs there, and obviously a very clean and sharp looking display.
Thank you.
They want to know where you get your displays from in the back.
Honestly, Google. Yeah, I Google the images. I find a high res one as best as I can, and then I take it to a website called uprinting.com that actually will cut it to the size of your DTOF, and you just trim it a little bit there. And what I like to do, because it does change, so I don't like to stick anything on the wall that I got to rip off later and break my DTOF and replace that and wire everything together. So what I do is I actually use the double-sided magnet tape, and I'll use the rods from the DTOF to kind of put them flush against those panels. So now I'm actually going to change it out. So the Mando is going to move because I'm going to make some changes to my DC collection over here, and I'm going to push it down because I'm starting to get my Endgame figures coming in, and I want to display them next to my Guardians and /Thor 3 figures here, just to kind of keep Marvel one side. I'm very OCD when it comes to these things. When it comes to collecting, it has to look neat to me. So I'm gonna put the Marvel to Marvel, DC to DC, and I'll probably put Mando in the corner or something like that.
Very cool.
Yep.
All right, topic time. So Danny, obviously, with anybody that's just joining us now, we talked about it at the intro. You've been a scavenger here for a little over a year. You've been collecting for several years now. And as we talked about, Chris, TC, myself, we are a bunch of hacks. We maybe have some good advice now and then, but it's great to see somebody that's within the community, maybe whether you're listening to what we say or not, but then kind of putting your own spin on it. So I think it's just really cool that, I mean, and that's the cool part about the Hot Toys community. I think we think the community is a lot larger than it really is. It still really is really niche. I mean, the fact that we are fortunate enough to be able to afford as many of these figures that we're talking about, to have the privilege of buying and selling and doing all these crazy things that some of us do more often than not. But there's a lot of things that there's a whole psychology to collecting. And so we want to kind of pick your brain a little bit. We'll go back and forth on some of these. It kind of like almost like a little greatest hits, things that we've maybe covered in the past, but I'm really interested to get your perspective on it because it's going to be different than ours. And like we said earlier too, there's no right or wrong way. I mean, well, there's probably a wrong way that people think like I'm crazy, and I probably am. But anyways, let's get started here. So one of the first things that always comes to mind, and I know I've said it a lot on the show, over 70 episodes now in almost 3 years, space. We never think about it when we're doing pre-orders and stuff here, Danny, but it's, for me, it's a constant in and out. Okay, where am I going to split? You just talked about having a very clean and organized display. You're almost doing mental gymnastics in your head every time you've got something else you want to add. It's like, okay, do I add this and will it fit? Or do I need to add and then subtract? So space, what does that mean to you as a collector?
Well, I mean, as a collector, I mean, when it comes to your space, I mean, this is really going out to everybody in whatever stage you're in, whether you're just getting into the hobby now, you've been doing this for a while. I mean, eventually we all come to the common denominator that we're all going to run out at some point. So it's not going to be a question of if, it's just only going to be a question of when, honestly. So on my idea for space, I think the first thing is just to really understand it. Understand what space you're going to be working with, where you want to display your high-end collectibles here, and just tailor it to you. Really just tailor it to you. I mean, you're going to see people with amazing displays. You're going to see people with these gigantic $2,000, $3,000 gorgeous thing, but that may not be for you. So, and that's okay. That's an okay thing. It's just a matter of kind of planning ahead. If you're going to be going into a collection hobby like this, it's always good to have an idea of how far you're going to take it. My mistake coming into it is, ironically, it's coming full circle for me. I started officially collecting when the Justice League figures were originally announced. And during that window, I was pre-ordering. I said, I'm just gonna complete the line. That's what I told myself, and that's it. This was originally supposed to be a man cave. There was supposed to be some really cool football stuff in here, and then over time, this right here. I don't know, but
we know.
Yeah. So anyway, to make a long story short on this here, I budgeted a floating shelf right over my TV, and that was going to be the end of it there. But then my first figure came in, and I really got a hands-on look at the quality of these figures, and I was instantly blown away. And then I became impatient, and then I started gobbling up every hot toy I can find in a matter of months. And by the time the Justice, because it's well documented, they were delayed forever. I mean, but by the time I received, I think Superman was the last one to release, if I'm not mistaken, I think I may have amassed almost 90 figures in that time period alone. Yeah. It feels good to finally admit that to other people besides myself.
That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
But once I had those figures in hand, I had to make a mad dash. I need to figure out how am I going to display all these things. So I kind of did it backwards, I would say. And, I just, it's now the collection's really coming along. It's really getting to that vision I had for it there. But I made a few mistakes along the way. I had to sell some. I had to take some losses on some just because the excitement got to me too much. But I think the biggest takeaway here is just like, whatever you decide you're going to do with your displays, make sure you're building it off of something that you really care about and you're passionate about, figure-wise, character-wise, and then build it off of there. But more importantly, take your time. That's really the big thing when it comes to space, just because it's going to fill up if you don't keep track of that too. We're so excited about every release. We talk about it every time a new figure comes out, but you got about 12 to 18 months before you have to pull the trigger on this stuff. So it's probably a good idea to take a step back and just kind of think about it for just maybe a minute and see if this is going to be a figure you absolutely need to have.
Yeah, I mean, TC, you keep a really curated, clean display as well. Everybody can kind of see it, over your left shoulder there. And I mean, you've had to go through where you've kind of rotate figures in and out of boxes and storage and kind of changing up the display. I mean, Chris, the Letty warehouse is always in the coffers. You only have a few figures out on display at any time, but I think what TC and I really have been trying to help you out here, Chris, is you're saying like, okay, you've got, I'm not even gonna say the number out loud, but when you say you got X number of figures, and then I tell you what I have and what I have on display, and you know what TC's got on display, and it's about double that, and then just the amount of space that you've got tied up in your collection.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just trying to be, we're just trying to be the best friends that we can to you. It's like when you get to go display it, you're going to be like, holy cow, I've got so many.
So, I mean, Danny's story sounds very familiar. I can relate.
You like that one?
Yeah. So, I mean, the one part of my equation that's tough is that my space is not finished. It's not ready. It's, my display is not like just, I can just put the figures in it. I mean, we basically have to finish off our entire basement, for me to be able to have a display space. So, it's, I know the area where I'm going to have my 6 scale display, but again, it's hard because like I have to factor in all those costs of finishing off a basement. And unfortunately, like Bryan, there's other things that are, priority above finishing off the basement and man cave when it comes to, house upgrades and exterior landscaping, that sort of thing. So reality kicks in and it's like, okay, I thought maybe I would be able to have this basement finished, by this winter. No. So TC brought up the point saying, look, if your basement / display area is going to get delayed, then you need to think like even further deeper into this collection purge. Like, is it worth it holding on to these figures and not having the display space, or just selling, purging down, selling off, putting the money into the bank, getting the other areas in order, the priorities. And then when it comes time to get started on the basement, the collection is pared down significantly. So I don't have this massive collection just sitting there waiting for me. I've got a curated collection. And then if I do ever want to go back and get those figures, I always can. Like, even if the prices have gone up, and I really feel like I wish I, hadn't sold that figure. Right? I know. Come on.
We've tried.
I know our buddy Mark Pearson, like my buddy Justin, like
Raul. I mean, we'd have a whole bunch of scavengers over.
I know we could, if everybody lived closer, get it done. But yeah, so basically, I'm really, the space is not an issue because I've got plenty of space in this basement. I can have a really big 6 scale display. But again, I talked to a buddy of mine, Finnish carpenter. He was going to do the stairs coming down into the basement for me. He was talking about like all the things that we could do. He's like, but it's going to cost you a lot of money to do it right and to make it look really nice and have all like, all the lighting in there and the wiring and have it look proper and stuff. I mean, it's going to be a big investment. So the money's got to come from somewhere. And again, we always talk about using your collection, as currency. I mean, I'm using the collection as currency for other areas of the, house improvements, but eventually it's going to come back to the basement and, I can really figure out that space and that display area. It's just it kind of sucks, spending money on, fencing and, landscaping and all that stuff. I'd rather spend it on my collection room. I know, grown up stuff, So no, that's definitely a big key is understanding the space that you have to work with and expectations and reality, coming together and putting it all together.
If only you had the skills to do this yourself.
I got some skills, but I don't get those. I don't get all those skills.
Nunchuck skills, bow staff skills.
No, you're right. I mean, I guess for every collector, their display's going to differ, and really, based on what you're working with, the utility of each additional figure is going to be different for everybody. So, like for me, once I start hitting like near 30 figures, everyone that I add, it starts to really kind of take away. It doesn't really 30, 40 figures. If I go over 40, it just starts to kind of get crammed. And then I got to start looking to kind of build additional, put additional shelving units. But then I just don't know if I want to devote that. So it like you said, Danny, you have to understand what you're working with. And Chris, like in your case, you really, you got to try and finish the basement. Otherwise the Hot Toys have no value because they're just sitting in boxes. And if we know, what they are, they're meant to be displayed. So if you can't do that, then what's the point of just accumulating if it's just going to sit there? At least, the more that I've, continued to be around Hot Toys, the more that I feel like they need to be, well, just for me at least, on display. Otherwise, you can't. It's just hard. They're not like other collectibles. The other they have real presence. The amazement comes from the detail, and it just is what it is. So
yeah, when they're tucked away in a box, it's almost like you shouldn't even have them if they can't be displayed.
That's why I sell like crazy all the time. I've seen a couple of people saying they're comfortable with keeping things in boxes. To me, it's like, yes, they have a lot of intrinsic value, but I think like TC hit it on the head. Like they have more value on display where you can appreciate them. I think having a figure that costs several $100s sitting in a box somewhere, like I'd rather sell it, reinvest it somewhere else. Anyways, like Dan, we could keep going on and on about the space thing. Like, that could have been a whole episode topic on its own. One of the other things that we were talking about too, and it's this phrase that, and it's not necessarily wrong, but like a phrase a lot of people will have is like, collect what you love. Well, TC mentioned it earlier, Danny, like Hot Toys is at the point where they don't make bad figures. It's easy to love everything. So where do we draw that line? Where would you draw that line as a collector, as a scavenger?
Yeah, that line that you just mentioned, Bryan, is the very reason why I bought 97 figures my first year doing this hobby. So, I mean, as far as that, I mean, it's very vague, and you bring up a good point. I mean, Hot Toys has this down to a science. I mean, with the exception of, a Tony Stark head sculpt scandal or, I don't know, like Ant-Man situation. Yeah. I mean, outside of that, I say they knock it out the park about 99% of the time, right? So that means if you're into Marvel, DC, Star Wars, or any of those, there's a good chance you're going to like it. And there's probably a better chance you're going to want it. So, I mean, if that's what we're working with here, like, you're right. That's probably the question that everybody's asked themselves right now. Where do I draw the line? And the answer, honestly, is it depends on you. I mean, when it comes to, being true to the vision that you had for your collection in the beginning, or whether that's changed, if you're refocusing it, I mean, if it doesn't make sense for what you're building for your display or however you showcase your figures, you just, now it has to become willpower. It just has to be a point of where we just say no, or maybe just at least wait a little bit longer to see if it still feels like that after the initial pictures are taken, after every reviewer showed a gazillion videos and stuff like that on it. And maybe at that point, if it still feels right, well, you got the time. You really do. I mean, honestly, most people don't really start picking up on the orders after the initial announcement until closer to the final production photos come out. So, I mean, Heavy Mando sold out. And I know everybody's like surprised that it happened, but keep in mind, Heavy Mando's been available in the Hong Kong market for a couple months. So even though, yes, it did sell before pre-order, there was plenty of time to decide for yourself if you wanted to do that. So, I mean, as long as you keep your bases like, hey, I like the photos, I'm thinking about it, to, hey, it's finals, I think that's the safe place to really start figuring out if you want to keep it or not. And if it works with the space, then have at it.
Yeah, completely agree. and like we struggle with this all the time, and I think we are the fact that Chris, since the beginning, and TC, like the fact that we do talk about all this stuff, sometimes it's hard not to get caught up in the excitement a little bit. And I don't consider us any sort of influencers in any way, but just mentioning like those, like the reviewers and stuff that Danny just mentioned, where they're building the hype. Heavy Mando being one of the most recent examples, like everybody went nuts for that as soon as it got available, and everyone's saying like, don't miss it. Well, maybe you do miss it. And then the other running joke that we've seen, at least in the Scavenger community, is just because something is about to go to waitlist or something like that, and you weren't intending to buy it before, that doesn't mean that's the time to go buy it, because then the price skyrockets, because then it's like, oh my God, I missed it. This is the only place I can get it is on eBay for $100 over that you have to pay out of pocket. The seller is barely going to break even on that. We've talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the other thing that we touched on a little bit too, and I want to get into this in a future episode, is kind of like the collecting as an infinite journey versus a finite. You can have short-term goals of like, getting maybe a figure or something like that. But what do you do once you've accomplished that goal? It can feel empty. I've done that multiple different times before, when you collect a line like, oh, I'm going to go get all the Rogue One figures. When I got all of them, I didn't get some kind of an achievement trophy or something that I had all of them. I just was like, geez, I just spent a lot of money on getting the Rogue One line. You mean a star didn't pop up and like a prize came out of it, or anything? Network trophy or anything for doing that. So the four of us here can't help you with that. Like, you have to really figure that out on your own, and be okay with, selling. It's okay to sell. It's not a weakness to sell, just because like it's a constant. The term has come up a couple times this evening, is curating. You're curating a collection, because if you just keep constantly adding, and not, you're going to end up with stuff not on display. You're going to end up with stuff that you don't truly love. And you're just going to get caught up in that hype. And then you're going to be sitting with things that have real world value, that have more value, that would be on display, that you could be spending on other real world things or different things in your collection. Or there's no right answer to this. If I could figure this out, I wouldn't have the issues that I do with trying to decide what to do with my collection. Yeah. I mean, I definitely struggle with this, because I am a fan of, these three major franchises, as well as other franchises that Hot Toys delves into every now and then. And then also, we're only talking about Hot Toys, but I mean, there's other companies making licensed 6-scale stuff. There's companies making, third-party 6-scale stuff. So it's not just Hot Toys. I mean, you factor in all these other companies making stuff. If you're a Game of Thrones fan, if you're a Lord of the Rings fan, if you're a Bill and Ted's fan, like, there's a lot of stuff out there, and it's just going to keep coming. And some of those other pop culture franchises that are, whether it's the 70s, 80s, whatever. I mean, it's really easy to get sucked into that feeling of, you see it released and you're like, oh my God, I love that movie as a kid.
I got to have this. And then it's like, you start doing that with everything, then, I mean, you're just going to have everything. And it's really difficult to, in my opinion, I'm just saying, it's really difficult when you have tons and tons and tons of stuff, unless you have a really huge display area, like a, big basement or like a loft, above a garage or something. Unless it's everything's on display and you can see everything, it's really hard to appreciate everything. And as I've grown as a collector and, really since, I've known Bryan and started the podcast and stuff, it's like, I've really learned quality over quantity, and what I really love, what really means a lot to me, because I'm not just a 6 scale collector. I've got a pretty sizable vintage Star Wars collection, modern Ahsoka collection, all sorts of comic books, trading cards, vintage Star Wars, whatever. I've got a lot of other things. So I've got to factor in all that stuff as well. And I know a lot of collectors don't just collect 6 scale stuff. There's a decent percentage that do, but again, it's all that stuff on top of the 6 scale collection. And I'm trying to apply that with other areas of my collecting too, is just buying the things that, a rare, it's super random, but like a rare Rebel Commando piece, because I love, Rebel Commando, Endor is my jam. So like, I'll focus on one piece there instead of buying, an entire wave of vintage collection, 3¾ inch Star Wars figures. Even though when I see them released from Hasbro, like I'm like, oh, those card backs look really cool, I'll get them. I find myself getting them, and then end up selling them after I get them. So it's, it's just, I keep on falling into the trap, but then, slowly, 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
It's a constant struggle. There's no easy way to do it. And I mean, TC, James just said it in the chat there too. A man has everything, appreciates nothing. I mean, that's kind of finding that proper balance there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like it's different for everybody. So I mean, it's not like what's right for me is right for 80% of collectors. It's just how your own life experiences change how you view things. And so like Chris, what you're dealing with now is you had, I don't know if we should say it, you had 90 figures. That's a lot, or close to it. Some people have a lot more.
About twice what TC and I have.
But if you have other things to take care of, and then you look into your collection, you notice, okay, well, I can get rid of 20 Hot Toys and keep my other items, yet also keep a bunch of Hot Toys, and you make that decision. So I mean, it's what you're working with, and there's nothing wrong with it. There's also nothing wrong with having 150 figures or more, or 20 or 5 or 10. It's just, it's your, what is the next figure offer you? What does your current collection offer you? It differs, but at the same time, you got to be, it's okay to shift.
And 20 Hot Toys can net you a significant amount of money in return, even if just say all things being equal, you break even for those. I mean, that's paying for the work that potentially needs to be done outside, or and stuff. And then that's great. I don't have to use a credit card. I don't have to take out a loan or anything like that. So it helps out in the long run. And then also, I was with shifting gears like Bryan, like trying not to pre-order stuff. With the Mando stuff, it was really tough to not fall into the hype of getting that order locked in right away, just because some of these figures look so amazing. Definitely trying to back off the pre-orders and just try to let those ones that I have, come out, and then, the weight of your pre-orders, lessens. Bryan canceled a bunch. I canceled a number of them too. But I think once more figures start coming out and that sort of thing, the collection's purged, definitely feel like I'm in a better place.
Danny, one of the other things that we didn't even get to half the things that I wanted to talk about, so we're definitely going to have you back again. I'm already going to call it now. So there'll be a part 2 to this conversation in the short future here. One of the other things that was a very fascinating kind of look, and I guess I don't know if we've ever really talked about it per se, but I think talking about these pre-orders and you get excited about the figures and you want them to come in. And then sometimes, like the way that Hot Toys does their releases, I mean, obviously they take time off for the Lunar New Year. There's time periods where they don't have their factory producing a lot. And then all of a sudden, you've got this huge, which sounds like a good problem to have. You get a lot of figures all at the same time. And it's like, as a collector, you wanted this figure. You spent a lot of your hard-earned money on it. You maybe put an NRD down on it. Maybe you didn't. But you plop down a sizable amount of money for it, and you get it in, and you almost rush to put it on your shelf because you've got one coming in the following day or something like that. And I mean, as a collector, how do you handle that?
Honestly, that's when it really hit me that maybe I was going too fast, honestly, at that stage, because these are 250 plus investments to a lot of us there. And I mean, regardless of what your budget is, that's a lot of money. And there was a lot of excitement that like you said, that you had for that figure, and then it finally arrives. You run home, you unbox it, and you look at it for 2 seconds. Maybe you post it to your buddies that it came in, and it goes on the shelf. And then the next guy comes in 3 days, and I got to be ready for that one. So that's for me where like I really really agree with what TC they said a couple of podcasts ago, where it was kind of less is more. And that's what really started hitting me like, hey, I can't control the invoices coming in as fast as they do, but at the same time, I should be appreciating these figures more because, it's a very fortunate thing to be able to collect this hobby and have as many as some of us have. And, at the same time, you deserve to be able to display it, Chris, like you were talking about your basement situation. I don't have a basement. I live in Florida, so I have the smallest room in the house. So I made what I could do. It looks nice on video, but if I show you photos, it's a mess. But yeah, I mean, I'm at this stage, and I think I had to learn this the hard way first, and just kind of make those impulse purchases, and be overwhelmed with figures to realize that maybe I don't need as many, not because I don't want them. It's just that maybe I should just appreciate some of the ones that I have more, and then let my collection kind of breathe and kind of have a feeling of its own. It's just more personal to me. My problem was I was attempting to keep up with everybody, and I learned my lesson. I will never keep up with a YouTuber ever again. You guys won. I'm not going to say which one it was, but I know they knocked out the park, but I don't need every single one. But yeah, I mean that's just where I am right now. I'm in a good kind of group. I've consolidated a lot of my collection. I've refocused it. I'm more emotionally attached to the ones that I've kept and the ones that I've purchased down the road. And if it's mine, I actually am so envious when I see posts online. People, they say my humble little collection, they have maybe 2 details and there's maybe, 6 figures total there. I mean, I remember when I was at that stage, that's when the hobby was really fun. That's when it was like really fresh and exciting. And after a while, if you're trying to keep up with everything that's going on, it's going to feel like a job, except you're paying to do the job. So I just want it to be a nice balance where like I'm happy with my collection and I don't feel like I'm going house poor to keep up with everything else that's going out there. So
yeah. I just saw Jetta just mentioned too. We're talking about like that kind of like that attachment is saying like if you're attached to too many, like I had to take what I felt like was kind of like a hard cut through some of mine just to obviously my real world example. And it's just because I just didn't want to create other hardships for myself just to make other money available. And sometimes collecting is the first thing to go, which is fine. It's such a privilege to say, I'm going to pause this for a little bit. But the thing is I meant to say this a little bit ago too, is we're talking about like getting and appreciating those things. the one thing that's helped me recently is, and I've struggled with this over the 3 years we've done this podcast, Chris, is feeling compelled to have a representation from a favorite movie or something in my collection, and being okay that it doesn't make me any less of a fan if I don't have a figure. Like right now, I'm in the process of trying to sell my, my Solo figure from the Solo movie. I love Han Solo in that movie. Yeah, it might be sacrilegious to say, but I almost enjoy him a little bit more than Harrison Ford's performance. And just to say, like, okay, the problem is he doesn't fit with anything. He literally is Solo. I mean, he doesn't even fit with the Darth Maul because they weren't even in a scene together. So it's just hard to have him in a display across that. Just he doesn't fit with the original trilogy characters because he obviously is a lot younger there. And it's just okay just to admit, like, okay, it's just, I had it. I enjoyed it for a little bit. Chris, we've talked to our friend Raul all the time, Gare, people that just, the way that they go about selling is they almost will discount a figure when they're selling it, minusing their enjoyment from it. And those guys don't have a problem selling anything. Like a Gare can sell a figure in 2 minutes. It just amazes me. Like he has people tripping over themselves to buy from him. It's a special ability, but then there's others that don't want to lose a cent on a figure. There's any way to go about that. And I mean, we didn't talk. There's so many other things we wanted to pick your brain, Danny, again. Like what do we do with secondary market stuff? We didn't even talk about like we've
scratching the surface.
Yeah, there's so many things, and I mean, we've revisited some topics over the last 3 years, occasionally, but sometimes it's just getting a different perspective. Getting somebody like yourself that's in the community. You've got your own opinions and thought processes about what you've done. You've had different successes and failures than the three of us have had. All collectors experience that. And I think one of the reasons why we keep doing what we do on this show is where we've talked more about like the things that everybody experiences versus how cool it is to go buy all the stuff and then have to sell it afterwards because you're not actually keeping it and being super excited about something, but then you secretly are selling it afterwards. And I think that's why we keep the collection update, just to be transparent of like, yeah, we are enjoying things for a little bit and maybe selling it afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just to kind of wrap up what we're talking about here, just so everybody kind of understands like where I'm coming from with this. And again, this is not me putting my opinion and telling you this is what you run out and do. Absolutely. This is just me sharing kind of what's worked for me, what hasn't worked for me, where my headspace has been at times when going through the collection. And, for me, I thought I was going to not like selling as many figures and, parting with a lot of things that I thought were amazing. They were gone. And thankfully I didn't cry myself to sleep the next day after I shipped it out. There was maybe a couple there, but here's what I'll say with this. Normally I would get every single thing that came out. But the past maybe 4 or 5 months, I've really just been scaling down, selling, little by little there. And in that time period, aside from what happened for my birthday recently, I picked up 3 figures. And those 3 figures in order was Yondu, Hela, and I got my Short Trooper finally. Now I have probably 20 less figures than what I had up to that point there, but I have 3 ones that I absolutely love instead. And it's just like that for me was just like the perfect, example. The perfect example for me to just say, hey, listen, I'm doing the right thing on the right track for me in my collection. I have figures now that I have more of an emotional connection to. And I may not have as many as the next guy, but that's okay too. But I'm happy. And that's the most important thing to feel about this hobby. It's just make sure that it's still fun.
Yeah. I mean, TC, it's never a competition. It shouldn't be because you'll lose every time. There'll always be somebody with a bigger collection or a bigger display or a better display.
Yeah, Chris, I lose to Chris.
He is the worst.
Yeah, the worst at budgeting, the worst at sticking to a plan, the worst willpower. Definitely the worst.
We still love you though, Chris. So, all right. Anyways, I could keep talking to the 3. Like we could just keep going and keep talking about this. We'll save more for the next time, and we'll be a next time, Danny. So can't thank you enough for joining. again, if anybody just tuned in and then kind of missed your introduction, just kind of tell everybody where they can find you now on YouTube. And obviously, hopefully, a lot of people already knew you in kind of the Scavenger community, but I've just this was a lot of fun to kind of have this just really honest take on some of these topics.
Yeah, guys, thank you for having me. I can't thank you enough for letting me join in the podcast on the 70th episode. I did not know it was going to be the 70th episode when I said yes.
Yeah.
But all the same, I would love to come back for another time. We'll just blame it on Batman, I guess, for this episode. Just on Batman, us DC guys. Yeah, you guys can find me little, small, humble little podcast we do called House of Fandom out of the Lights Up production. We're just movie buffs. It has nothing to do with 6 scale, full disclosure. Just a couple guys who like movies and have opinions about them.
Awesome. And you said you got a episode tomorrow night, so people can check that out pretty soon here. All right, guys. We'll do the normal plugs and just kind of grab our final thoughts here. We have our website, obviously, 6scalescavengers.com. The database is recently updated for all these Batman and DC figures. That page went a little dormant for a while, and now it's been our most actively updated one. We've got our TeePublic store. Obviously, get those T-shirt designs out there. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We've got our audio podcast on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and 6scalescavengers.libsyn.com. Grab that RSS feed, throw it into your podcast catcher of choice. Obviously, our friend Scott with Parker Files. Make sure you're checking out his YouTube channel. He just reviewed the Advanced Suit Spider-Man, and very phenomenal figure there. And definitely check that out. And I know he's got some more stuff planned as well.
Oh, Pop's coming in last minute. Oh, jeez, Andrew.
Yeah, Pops. No one said suit. Well, you missed it, Pops. We said it earlier. Thank you, my friend, for the donation here at the end. And not to be outdone by Andrew again. You guys spend your money on your collection, please. I'm just going to start. I might just disable Super Chat at some point. The support is awesome. We appreciate it. But literally, guys, we are scavengers. Always be scavenging.
Mm-hmm.
Spend it on your collections, please. We'll be fine. You guys have already helped us out for like a year or two with all of our costs and stuff like this. Now it's just getting absurd. But we do truly appreciate it.
Yes, we do.
All right, guys. A little bit of a longer episode than normal. God, Star Child. I almost missed to mention. You guys are
Merman.
too kind.
Merman.
Too kind.
We appreciate you guys. You deserve it.
Yeah.
All right, Chris, TC, Danny, any final thoughts?
Man, it just an abundance of figures this time around, and I don't anticipate there being this many figures next episode, but you never know.
There's a big backlog, guys, of things that still need to be released. I'm kind of tracking some of the Marvel side. I mean, Iron Patriot, Rescue, Time Suit Tony. The DC side, I think the Flash
Spider-Man,
quarter scale Spidey, the Flash TV figure is November 2019 at this point.
Jeez,
and then on the Star Wars side, the Rey and Kylo Ren figures are well overdue. So those stuff's going to start dropping at some point soon here. We've got all the rest of the Endgame figures, Thor, Hulk.
Definitely.
It's so easy to get excited about this stuff, Chris, but just do it in moderation.
Review those pre-orders, and really, if you might want to pull back on some of them, get ready now. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. Definitely, always love the drops from Hot Toys, and we'll see what's coming.
And I'm sure Hidalgo will mention that as soon as we hit the end broadcast button here, I'm sure Hot Toys will drop something. That's just our OG
tradition. Just tradition.
Yes. Yeah.
Appreciate it, OG.
Fan. Thank you. You guys are the best community out there. So, all right. Like I said, we could have just kept talking and talking and talking. It's just really fun to talk about this stuff. But Chris, I think we do need to bring it home here. So, do your thing, my friend.
Excelsior.